Hi, I am Kyla Thomson and I am a medical mom. A medical mom is someone who does as much as they possibly can medically for their child at home. A medical mom is someone who has spent a lot of time in hospital for the little one. My daughter, Isabella, has come to spend over 800 days in hospital due to the 3 extremely rare diagnoses she was born with, which is Hirschsprung's disease, which is essentially her colon was dead cells and didn't work. SCID, severe combined immune deficiency, which meant she had absolutely no immune system when she was born, and we did not know. And the last is she was born with a form of dwarfism called cartilage hair hypoplasia, and this has affected her bone structure and her stature. Now, due to her bowels failing and her lack of IV access, she is now listed for a bowel transplant, and we are waiting for the call. Bella is 7 years old right now, and the first 2.5 to 3 years of her life from birth were spent inside hospital walls. 3 different hospitals to start: our hometown, Saskatoon RUH, and eventually we were transferred to Alberta Children's in Calgary. And the extent of her 3 rare conditions, and as we found out what each really meant for her tiny little body, kept us in hospital that long. There were no known complications or any indications during my pregnancy that Bella would be born with any of these diagnoses. We really had no clue. 3 days after she was born is when things of issues started to come to light. So I remember on the 3rd day she was really distended. The nurses alerted me to her vomiting green bile, and she hadn't pooped yet. And so at that point, they rushed us to Saskatoon RUH, which was our closest NICU in Saskatchewan. And the surgeon knew right away that Hirschsprung's was the issue, and he performed her first surgery at 3 days old. But at that time, we didn't know the extent of how rare her form of Hirschsprung's was and what it meant for her future. We came to learn that as the days and the months and the year went on, and we just didn't get a chance to go home. She was always sick. She was always vomiting. The ostomies that they created never seemed to help. We eventually found that she just, her Hirschsprung's affected her more than we had realized, even through the first 4 surgeries on her bowel. And we also didn't know she had no immune system during all of these surgeries. So she was always sick and always spiking fevers, constantly on IV antibiotics. And we didn't know why. Eventually, this led to her needing oxygen, and our local hospital couldn't get her off oxygen, and they reached out to the nearest children's hospital in Alberta, and we were transferred. And it was there, after her puzzling quite a few pediatricians, that I had felt a lump in her armpit at one point and had asked the pediatrician to look into it. Thankfully, he was very thorough. He got it biopsied, and at 11 months old, that is when we found out that the extent of her being alive was truly a miracle at that point. Her diagnosis at that time was SCID, severe combined immune deficiency. No T cells, no B cells. The common cold could have killed her. I think part of the big reason why she survived is we were in hospital trying to figure out her bowel issues, and she was constantly on IV antibiotics. She was constantly looked at by medical professionals. And I think that helped. If I would have brought her home and she caught a cold, I don't think she would have survived. So they immediately put us on isolation and began the search for a bone marrow donor for her. At this point, it's hard to think about. At this point, we had been living in hospital for 1 year, and this could have been avoided if our province had newborn SCID screening, where they test newborns for SCID at birth. And if that would have been in place, they would have set her up for a bone marrow transplant right away. So unfortunately, that wasn't the case for us, and it took a year in hospital to figure that out, and set her up for a bone marrow transplant. And so at that point, after living a year in hospital, I now was only able to hold my daughter if I was fully gowned with a medical gown. I had a mask on, I had gloves on, I had booties on, and no other family members were allowed to see her or touch her or come in the room or even come on the hospital unit. She received her bone marrow transplant for SCID in March of 2015 when she was just 1. From there, the many bowel complications and bone marrow transplant complications kept us in hospital for another year. The severity of her HD basically got to the point where they realized she was a part of the less than 5% that have long segment Hirschsprung's disease, where it affected her entire colon and even parts of her small bowel, which they'd never really seen before. So they questioned another disease that they have never heard of, and they're still looking into that. But she continued to have years of bowel complications that meant still continuous distension, pain, vomiting, and she grew more and more dependent on IV nutrition. So her bowels could not process food and drink like ours can, and so really the only way to support her nutritionally was through IV. This growing dependence on IV nutrition really took a hit on her tiny vessels, and so now it's gotten to the point after multiple surgeries on her vessels to put these CVC lines in, like ports. She now only has one access left for IV fluids, which is her lifeline. And this is a big part of why she is now listed for bowel transplant. Besides her bowels failing, she requires over 1 liter of fluids through IV daily. And without that, she wouldn't survive. So her chance at survival now depends on new bowels from a donor and this one vein left to stay strong and keep her IV access going. So what's in Bella's future? What's in store for her? Well, I am thankful now that after our care at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto, over the past 3 months in 2020, we spent July to October there, and they assessed her for bowel transplant and just made her bowel care so much easier to manage at home. And so now she's living without pain, without distension, without vomiting, and her ileostomy at home, and she's doing wonderful. And so the management while we wait for a bowel transplant is everything we could hope for. She's doing really, really good right now. It's hard knowing that, or what could happen when that day comes, when we get the call. I hope it comes soon. I hope she gets a chance at new bowels. That would mean no more need for IV nutrition. That would mean no more need for an ostomy. She's always wanted to go swimming. Right now she can't swim, and it would mean she could go swimming. And so much more that would just be available to her, and just her life. She would have a new life because we wouldn't have to worry about losing this line access and what that would mean if she were, to not be able to receive IV nutrition, or her bowels failing without that as well. It's really hard to think about. And I just want to stay positive and hopeful that a successful bowel transplant will come for her soon. Apart from that, Bella is a child. She lives to the fullest on her own terms. She's not shy. She's very daring. For the amount of isolation she's had to live, it blows my mind that she's so happy and so outgoing. I mean, it's all she's known from birth, so maybe that has something to do with it. But she's the most outgoing, energetic little kiddo you will ever meet. Some of her favorite activities are camping, quadding, skidooing, faster than I even like. She's a little bit of a daredevil. She loves playing outside. I mean, we're from Canada, and it doesn't matter if it's -20. She wants to go out and just have fun. My son, Waylon, is 2, and his relationship with his sister, Bella, is, it's beautiful and it's healing. She's not bitter at all that he's taller than her. He's a soft soul that actually, in fact, Bella has completely taken on the big sister protective role, even though she's tinier than him. It's quite adorable to watch them play together, or team up on dad, or work out their little squabbles, which usually end with Waylon running away crying. But, you know, when Bella and I were in hospital, being away from Waylon and my husband, when she's needed to stay in hospital, is a pain it's just a pain that I wouldn't wish on anyone, any family. It's heartbreaking. I want to be so strong for my daughter in the moment, and at the same time, I'm just aching in every part of my soul to be with my son and my husband. It's really hard. But her strength, like, she's just my strength, and her motivation pulls me through every time. Sorry. Okay. Bella, on a happier note, Bella was so excited to go viral on TikTok, even though she didn't really fully know what it meant at first. But the beauty in it was her excitement when she saw herself on TV, and then she really got it. She was just as surprised at first that people loved her fox drawing, but it really sunk in when she saw herself on TV, on national television. She just made her so excited. And having the love and support online from everyone is really all I wanted from this, apart from really just wanting to be an advocate for other mothers and parents that have to live in hospital with their child. I really want people to understand what we go through. It was really hard my first year in hospital. I had no outlet. I didn't post on Facebook. I couldn't really. And the pain in that first year was so hard to describe that now that I have the energy to do so, I really want to advocate for other mothers and parents out there that just don't have the voice or the energy to vocalize how it affects them mentally and their mental health. If there's one thing I'd want people to know, is that medical PTSD is real. And it's hard because children's hospitals focus on children like they should, but there is no mental health support for the parents that live that life with them, alongside their child. And the effects from that when you get home are really quite daunting. And I just want to raise awareness and show the world how they can help. Bella's been my strength through it all. I'm so thankful she has made me a better person. I don't want to be the person I was before her. She's made me a better mom, a better medical mom, and she's opened my eyes to what really matters. When I'm scared or when I'm worried about anything, she's the one that holds my hand and tells me that everything will be okay.